BBC News at 6 o'clock. This is Diana Speed. Good evening. A murder inquiry has begun in Essex after the bodies of 39 people, one of them a teenager, were found in a lorry container. The driver, a 25-year-old man from Northern Ireland, has been arrested. Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn have held talks in an effort to break the deadlock on Brexit. The families of passengers who lost their lives when their plane, a Boeing 737 MAX, crashed into the sea off Indonesia have been told that the aircraft's design contributed to the disaster. A deal to save British steel is in doubt after the Turkish company, named as the preferred bidder, failed to reach an agreement to buy it. US sanctions against Turkey, imposed over its offensive against the Syrian Kurds, have been lifted by President Trump. Also tonight, is fracking finished in the UK? And what is quantum supremacy? And is it everything it's cracked up to be? Police investigating the deaths of 39 people found in a lorry on an industrial estate in Essex have described what happened as an absolute tragedy. A murder investigation started after the bodies were discovered in Grays in the early hours of this morning. Police now believe the container was brought into Purfleet on the River Thames from Belgium and didn't travel across the Irish Sea to North Wales as they'd originally thought. They have said that tracking the route of the lorry will be a key line of inquiry amid concerns that people traffickers are searching out new ways into the UK. Our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford reports from the scene in Grays.
The police investigation took a sharp turn this afternoon when detectives realised that the refrigerated trailer had arrived in the UK at midnight into the small container terminal of Purfleet on the River Thames, just to the east of London. It had come across the channel on a cargo ship from Zeebrugge, and it was towed out of the Purfleet terminal just after 1 o'clock this morning. Not long after that, someone, it's not clear who, contacted the ambulance service, and at 1:40 the police were called. Detectives found the bodies of one teenager and 38 adults in the trailer and no survivors. Forensic science officers could be seen working at the scene in the Waterglade Industrial Park for much of the day, and then Deputy Chief Constable Pippa Mills said they plan to move the lorry to a more private place.
It's absolutely imperative that the operation is conducted with the utmost respect for the 39 people who've lost their lives. The lorry and the trailer will be moved to a secure location at Tilbury Docks so the bodies can be recovered whilst preserving the dignity of the victims.
Detectives think the tractor unit which towed the trailer out of Purfleet Terminal arrived in the UK at the port of Holyhead at the weekend. It has Bulgarian number plates but seems to be based in Northern Ireland. The number of dead prompted this statement from Boris Johnson during Prime Minister's questions.
This is an unimaginable tragedy and truly heartbreaking. I know that the thoughts and prayers of all members are with those who lost their lives and their loved ones.
Essex police have arrested a 25-year-old man on suspicion of murder. He's been named locally in Northern Ireland as Mo Robinson from the Portadown area.
Essex Police, with the help of the National Crime Agency and border officials, will now begin the task of identifying the victims. They have warned it could take some time. Part of the investigation will look at where they began their journey to the UK. Official figures suggest most people smuggled into Britain come from Eritrea in East Africa, Iraq, Afghanistan and Iran. Traffickers are known to use 4 main routes into Europe via Spain, Italy, Poland or Turkey. But, as our home editor Mark Easton explains, they are increasingly using less direct routes to get into the UK.
The clandestine movement of migrants across borders has become a multi-billion-pound business for organised criminal networks who charge desperate people vast sums for a perilous journey. The most common method is hidden in the back of a lorry, but increasingly they're also using commercial shipping containers, sometimes refrigerated like the one seen in Essex. 5 years ago, close to where today's container was found, police discovered dozens of people inside a shipping container, including 15 children. One man from Afghanistan was dead. In this case, the container appears to have arrived in the UK via Zeebrugge in Belgium, an increasingly popular route according to police. From there it went to Purfleet, part of the London Docks complex on the Thames. Criminal gangs are known to have shifted their operations away from ports like Dover and the Channel Tunnel, where security has intensified since the closure of the migrant camps in Calais 3 years ago. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, appearing before a committee of MPs today, said the Essex police investigation was moving quickly.
I think first and foremost, it's important to recognise that obviously, both in light of what's happened, which is just dreadful, Border Force, immigration teams and law enforcement agencies, of course, work together in terms of information sharing, data sharing, cooperation.
The key to beating people smugglers and human traffickers is cooperation across borders. The National Crime Agency and Europol have worked closely together with other partners to disrupt the gangs for many years, and there are efforts being made to ensure such vital collaboration is not adversely affected by Brexit.
Boris Johnson has told EU leaders there should be no delay to Brexit, despite MPs inflicting a damaging blow to the government's timetable for leaving. Last night, they rejected the Prime Minister's attempt to push the withdrawal agreement bill through the Commons in just 3 days, insisting they needed more time to scrutinise complex legislation. EU leaders are now considering whether to grant the UK's request for an extension beyond October the 31st. But the Prime Minister has said he'll push for a general election if the Brexit process stretches into the new year. Here's our Assistant Political Editor, Norman Smith.
Downing Street went out of their way today to make clear their desire for a winter election to break the Brexit deadlock. Government sources were openly contemptuous of the idea that Parliament should be given another go or that there was any prospect of MPs passing a Brexit deal. This despite the fact the Prime Minister yesterday secured a comfortable 30-strong Commons majority for the broad principles behind his deal. In the Commons, however, Mr Johnson appeared determined to press for an election, mocking the opposition parties over their reluctance to trigger one, and he issued this challenge to the Labour leader.
What I think we would like to hear from him now is his commitment to getting Brexit done. That is what the public want to hear. And I'm afraid, Mr Speaker, they are worried that all he wants is a second referendum.
Mr Corbyn responded with his own challenge to the Prime Minister.
Does the Prime Minister accept that Parliament should have the necessary time to improve on this worse than terrible treaty?
Earlier, however, away from the chamber, the two men had met in private with their advisers to discuss a possible compromise timetable for the Brexit bill. Although no agreement was reached, the fact the talks took place would suggest Number 10 have not yet given up on bringing back the Prime Minister's deal. An idea supported today by the Northern Ireland Secretary Julian Smith when he appeared before a select committee.
What I want to do is listen to